welcome to the next section of the course. In this section, we'll be learning about the Prettier library. So first up, what is Prettier? Prettier is an NPM library that automatically formats your code. So Prettier makes your code look better, makes it look more elegant by fixing issues like indentation, line length, comma placement, semicolons, and more. So Prettier is designed to be used with minimal configuration. You can just plug it into a project and get it to automatically format your files. And it doesn't just target JSX and React components. It can also target HTML, CSS, plain JavaScript, TypeScript, Markdown, and more. So here's a simple example from the official Prettier website. On the left-hand side, you have an example of an actual React component called Hello World. And you can see when you run Prettier, the NPM library on this file, it results in the file on the right. And as you can see, the file on the right is a lot easier to read and comprehend. So Prettier formats the code based on a reasonable set of standards that were debated and agreed upon by many developers. So the way I like to think about Prettier is it spares me the need to think about formatting my code or agreeing on a team consensus like semicolons or no semicolons, or another example is double quotes for strings or single quotes for strings. I honestly don't care as long as it's consistent and as long as it looks good, and Prettier takes care of that kind of formatting with minimal configuration. So I'm a big fan of this tool. The other thing I want to note in this lesson is to draw the distinction between Prettier versus ESLint, which is a technology that is included with Create React App. ESLint is what we call a linter. It's a program that checks for errors, violations, inefficiencies, and optimizations in your code. So a basic example of where you might see ESLint is if you import something from a library into a file, but you never use it within the file. That is an example of an inefficiency, and ESLint will warn you about that in VS Code. Prettier is a little bit different. It is a formatter. It doesn't care about code quality, it cares about code style. It is concerned with style or aesthetics, how the code looks, not how the code functions. So the two libraries have two distinct different purposes or uses, and even though they have that distinction, they will still occasionally fight with each other. They're going to butt heads because one library will want to format things in one way, while another library will want to format things another way. ESLint is concerned with violations, but sometimes those violations lead to organization of code in a certain design manner, and Prettier may disagree with how that code is formatted. So there are plugins available to resolve those disagreements, but more importantly, I just want you to understand the difference between the two. ESLint is for code quality, Prettier is for code style. All right, so in the very next lesson, we're going to install Prettier for our current project. It's also important to note that you should have the Prettier VS Code extension installed. I think earlier in the course, we walked through the process of installing the Prettier VS Code extension, but if you haven't, you can go to the extensions tab in VS Code. That's that connection of blocks. Search for Prettier and install that. All right, because that is going to create the integration between the Prettier library and the VS Code editor. And we'll dive more into that in upcoming lessons. So that's all there is to cover in this lesson, and I will see you in the next one.